Hey guys, this is JoAnn speaking here, and welcome to Paleo Reviews. Today, I'm finally ready to talk about the Primitive War movie, which came out in August 2025. Considering a sequel has been announced and there's another dinosaur movie called The End of Oak Street coming out this August, I knew that I have to talk about the Primitive War movie sooner or later. So, let's go ahead and get started. Primitive War is a movie based off the 2017 novel of the same name, written by Ethan Pittis. The year is 1968 during the Vietnam War. A unit called the Vulture Squad was sent to a valley on a rescue mission, only to discover living, breathing dinosaurs, even though they've been extinct for millions of years. Things get really dangerous and bloody from then on. Jiminy freaking crickets! This movie did not hold back, which it is to be expected if you're familiar with the novel like I am. But mercy freaking me, it didn't stop me from getting freaked out by the graphic nature of this movie. Speaking of the original novel, I did a video about it in October 2025 as one of my Halloween videos. If you guys missed out on it and you want to hear my thoughts on the first book, feel free to go watch that video later on. As for the movie itself, it's definitely a mixed bag where there's people who like it while there's people who don't like it. I'm one of these people who thought that as a movie, Primitive War is very decently made, and I call this one a breath of fresh air because as much as I enjoy the Jurassic franchise, it's time for more independent dinosaur movies to shine. But of course, it depends on how these kinds of movies are handled. Dinosaur movies can range from being kid-friendly to being goofy/over-the-top to being serious. Primitive War does indeed have some over-the-top moments you'd expect from a B movie, but at the same time, I feel like it's something I don't mind at all. Plus, the original novel was pretty crazy anyways. Yes, this movie is a gore fest, but as graphic as this movie was, dinosaurs should never be downplayed as just being quote-unquote for kids only. Which reminds me, rated R dinosaur movies are not very common. And now that I've checked out this movie sometime after reading the first book, I think it's safe to say that this movie's a pretty good adaptation despite some changes being made, including the fates of some of the characters, certain spots being missing, a main character being replaced, etc. But it's inevitable for movies to not include every single accurate thing from books. Now let's go ahead and dive into what I liked about Primitive War. First of all, the effects. Primitive War had really nice looking special effects, especially the CGI on all the dinosaurs that appeared on screen. On the subject of the dinosaurs, even the attention to details, including the lighting and the shadows, are really good too. Whether a dinosaur is out in an open field, deep in a dark forest, being surrounded by fire, etc. Oh, and here's something that surprised me. I was made aware by a friend a long time ago that Primitive War had a budget of $7 million, and for a movie with decent looking effects, that is one heck of a low budget. When my friend brought it up, they told me that this amount of money was roughly half the budget of Godzilla Minus One, and they brought that movie up because even with a limited budget, Godzilla Minus One had stellar CGI effects, and it would later on become the first Godzilla movie to win an Oscar. If there's one thing I learned from hearing about it all, especially when I was told that Jurassic World Rebirth had a budget of $180 million, there's always a possibility to achieve strong visuals on screen in a movie without budgets being Hollywood levels of ridiculousness, and Primitive War is a good example of that. There's also some really good camera work in this movie. Primitive War seems to know how to show the action going on and only shakes the camera when it feels necessary to do so. There's also a few interesting shots where the camera follows the characters like a backwards GoPro. If I have to pick some of my favorite shots, it'd be where Vulture Squad walks in the fog shortly after getting off a helicopter, the camera panning in a dark cave while it shows the creepy eyes of the Deinonychus, the shot of the Utah raptors surrounded by fire, and the bird's eye view of the father T-Rex swimming in the water. The third thing I liked would be the input of recent studies in paleontology. Primitive War did its homework on some of the studies that were done in the most recent years. One perfect example, feathers. I am fully aware that the original novel had feathered raptors too, but it's not going to stop me from being happy to see feathered raptors getting more attention in cinema. As a raptor fan, I approve. There's also other things as well, such as the Tyrannosaurus having lips, Spinosaurus swimming, and of course, Quetzalcoatlus having fuzz around their bodies. Last but not least, I appreciate this movie showing off a bit more dinosaur varieties. I've said this before in my book review video, and I'll say it again. The original novel had a decent roster of prehistoric animals, but I was raising an eyebrow on no mentions of hadrosaurs or sauropods. Now, thankfully, the movie provided exactly these kinds of dinosaurs, and we even get to see them during some scenes where the characters are trying to figure out where to go. I think one of my favorite dinosaurs that was not in the book but was added in the movie would be a Margosaurus. They look really pretty, and I like seeing different species of dinosaurs getting a spotlight in cinema. Real quick before I move on, I also want to point out that the acting in this movie was really good as well, and there were plenty of moments where you can tell that a character is in distress or freaked out by what they were witnessing. And now, of course, Primitivore is not without some of the issues I have. Here's the first issue I have with this movie, and I just couldn't be the only person who had this problem. Some scenes in this film felt like some profanity had been too forced. Before you guys jump to conclusions and think, oh no, JoAnn is sensitive to some sweasies here. No, that is not what I'm implying. Now, on one hand, I do get it. These characters have been involved with war, that crap is stressful, high adrenaline, PTSD, you see things that stick to you for a long time. I get it. But at the same time, there are some scenes like where Jericho talks to the members of Vulture Squad. Felt like the script was written by someone who thinks that saying the F word a lot equals sounding cool or edgy. I am someone who can tolerate hearing curse words, but at this point you'll start to wonder, is this really how these guys talk? Although, if you're swearing because you've been shot in the leg, or you're in so much pain from getting cut open by a raptor, or you're witnessing a Quetz eating someone alive, yeah, that's understandable. And now the second problem. Although a small one, is still a problem in my eyes. There are a few prehistoric animal designs that could have been better. Most of the designs look pretty good. The best designs, in my opinion, will be all the raptors, Amargasaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, and the Suchomimus. Well, here's the first one. This sauropod right here. I thought it was an Apatosaurus because of the face, but turns out these guys are Dreadnoughtus according to Wikipedia. While it's not the worst design, I am still deducting points on Dreadnoughtus for this movie because their face is a cardboard copy of the Jurassic World Apatosaurus. And as for the worst design of the movie, well, it's the T-Rexes. I'm going to start off what I liked about the design for the Rexes. They're chunky, the lips are covered up. I also like how the father Rex has quills while the female doesn't. I like how the baby T-Rexes had feathers. However, the T-Rex is more on the mediocre side for me. First off, take a look at the faces on both the T-Rex parents. If they look familiar to you, then I assure you, you are not going crazy. They are too Jurassic Park-ish. The crew behind this film should have been more creative with the faces on the Rexes instead of just ripping off the Jurassic Park designs. Take a look at some of the T-Rex designs from other different films. This goes to show that you can design a movie T-Rex without ripping off the Jurassic Park/World designs. Oh, and that's not the only issue here. The body shape on the Rexes don't look right. It's a bit disproportionate in my eyes, and it felt like I'm looking at a body of a Vastosaurus Rex from King Kong 2005. I'm not saying to cover the Rexes in feathers like the novel or rip off Prehistoric Planet. There's obviously nothing wrong with creativity in dinosaur designs in cinema, or other media that's for funsies, but inevitably there are going to be some designs that will not sit right with people. Despite all that, I will at least give this movie some credit. Whether the designs were stellar or mediocre, at least the dinosaurs in the movie look more like proper dinosaurs compared to the ones from '65. Now, another issue that's small. There's a few moments where the editing felt a bit off. In fact, there are two examples that caught my eye. So remember the scene where Gerald Keyes, after being fatally injured by Cyclops, blows up a base with grenades? Well, the movie did show the character's reaction as the area gets blown up, but then the scene swiftly cuts to the next scene where they're on a boat. I was a bit caught off guard on that spot, and it made me go, whoa, slow down here, because I feel like that scene switched a bit too fast, considering we just witnessed the death of a main character here. And the second example I want to point out would be during the final battle at the end of the movie. Slow motion was used during some spots, which was really cool, but there was a moment where there was a guy yelling, "We need to get the F word out of here," in slow motion, and it almost sounded like something from Windows Movie Maker because how choppy this guy's voice sounded. I will admit that part was a little bit silly. I mean, again, slow motion is cool, especially for scenes where stuff was happening so fast, although there are cases where slow motion needs to be used wisely. Now, the last issue is more on the mixed side for me. I don't mind Spinosaurus being added in this movie at all. I like seeing this dinosaur getting more love and attention in cinema besides the Jurassic franchise. But at the same time, I don't agree with Caprosuchus being replaced by that dinosaur. I took issue with that because Caprosuchus was a unique choice of a prehistoric animal to feature in the original novel, and seeing it in the movie would have been really cool. I already mentioned that it's inevitable for movies to not include every single accurate thing from books, so maybe this animal could have made a short cameo instead of it being cut out and replaced. And it didn't help that we saw a Suchomimus eating a crocodile. It could have been a whole lot worse. At least Quetzalcoatlus was kept in the movie. Now to some scenes that I consider my favorites. The first scene I liked was when Sophia was explaining how the dinosaurs came to be in the present day, even though they're supposed to be dead millions of years ago. I know some people think that the idea of dinosaurs appearing from wormholes sound a little silly, but I don't mind that at all, honestly, because it's at least something different besides cloning dinosaurs. As much as I don't like the T-Rex designs, I enjoyed the moments with both the T-Rex parents. You can tell that these two really love each other, especially that one cute moment where they gave each other nuzzles after they reunited. And that scene where these two go to town on a Soviet base after one of their babies was killed by one of Bardin's men was both thrilling and chaotic. As soon as the camera showed that poor baby Rex dead on the ground, I knew that these guys were so screwed. I also enjoyed the scene where Vulture Squad get out of the helicopter, and after wandering for a bit, Ryan Baker finds a notepad and it reads, "We're being hunted." Also, remember when I talked about how the movie showed more dinosaurs? Well, the scene where we see the characters encountering them in kind of like a form of a montage was another favorite scene of mine. The visuals on the eyes of Deinonychus in a cave tunnel was also another favorite scene of mine. It kind of gave me a flashback of the Troodons from Jurassic Park the game. And last but not least, do you remember at the beginning where I mentioned over the top? Well, as much as I find this final scene over the top, I can't help but to kick back and find that scene really entertaining. It's just pure crazy. There were a whole lot of Utah raptors attacking. We even get helicopters shooting at a flock of attacking Quetzalcoatlus, which that part reminded me of the deleted scene from The Lost World and also the helicopter scene from Jurassic World. Mercy me, I wonder how these guys didn't run out of bullets. Before I talk about my closing thoughts on Primitive War, some of you are probably thinking, "So, JoAnn, are there any scenes from the movie that freaked you out much like the book?" Yeah, absolutely. So just like the book, Tolstoy meets an agonizing death from Quetzalcoatlus. But here's the kicker to how this scene plays out in the movie, ladies and gentlemen. Tolstoy gets his insides pulled out and eaten by these giant pterosaurs. Ugh. I can confidently say that this was the nastiest scene ever from the film. I watched Primitive War with Tristan in a voice call in October, and when that scene popped up, we were both equally freaked out. And Tristan went, "They're slurping up this dude's intestines like spaghetti." And yeah, that's accurate. Also, can we talk about that scene with poor Gerald Keyes getting sliced open by a Utah raptor who would be known as Cyclops? Sheesh. That's another way to make feathered raptors scary. Oh, and the icing on the cake with that scene? This raptor covers Gerald's face before the gutting to prevent screaming. Jiminy freaking crickets. Which reminds me, the Utah raptors were so gosh darn relentless in this movie. To close everything off, is Primitive War flawed? Yes, but even with all that, it is one of the better dinosaur movies not connected to the Jurassic franchise, and I'm actually glad we got Primitive War. If you're looking for a rated R dinosaur movie and you can stomach the violence and you don't mind some craziness as well, then I do recommend this movie. Although there is something else I need to warn about besides the gore. To those who have photosensitive epilepsy, I'd be careful with this film because there are a few scenes that contain flashing lights. Despite some scenes that could have been better, a couple of flawed designs, and some editing that's a bit off in some spots, Primitive War has nice acting, great special effects, an intense story, a solid variety of dinosaurs, and of course more spotlight given to raptors with feathers. Primitive War 2025 will be given a solid 7.5 out of 10 sickle claws. I already mentioned in the beginning that a sequel to this movie is coming up soon, and given I checked out the first book, I will definitely check out the second novel before the sequel comes out. Well, time to traumatize myself again! Yay! And as for the question you might ask, JoAnn, are you going to check out The End of Oak Street? Yes, I will definitely check out that movie too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, afternoon, or night, and I'll see y'all later in another video.